we need to talk about the side hustle problem. There is a big difference between being an entrepreneur and just having a side hustle. Hey everyone, going to be doing things a little different today, talking about mindset and some of the marketing messages that you need to guard your business and your planning and goal setting against. So no analytics or Google Sheets or Excel sheets here, just going to be talking straight up how you should be approaching your business as an actual business owner versus all of the other people who are just trying to have a side hustle or make a quick buck online, because I think there's a huge difference and we definitely need to talk about it because in some of the comments I'm seeing, it's starting to sabotage some people's chances of success. So before we get into this, and I get a lot of hate in the comments, let's go ahead and go through the definition of an entrepreneur and then the definition of a side hustle and the big differences and why you're different as an entrepreneur than all those make money online and side hustle people. So anyway, let's go into this. The first one we have is entrepreneur, a person who recognizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. So keep the greater than normal financial risks in the back of your head because that's going to really matter in a couple minutes here. Then we have the definition of side hustle, a piece of work or job that you get paid for doing in addition to your main job. Now, the main difference between these two is time horizons, and it has nothing, and I will say on the outset, this has nothing to do with whether or not you have a job right now. Being an entrepreneur or having a side hustle has nothing to do with your primary source of income if you have a job. And I'm going to talk more about that because that's also kind of a lie that's being used to sell really crummy products. But we're going to look at this from a timeline perspective. When you're building a business, you should be looking at your goals, choosing your projects, and making decisions based on a 1 to 3 year or more time horizon. Whereas someone who's trying to make money now or have a side hustle, they're looking at a 1 to 3 or 6 month time horizon. So I think we could all agree that the decisions you make, how you spend your time, the goals you set, and your expectations for the work that expectations of the results for the work that you do is going to be drastically different if you have a 1 to 3 time horizon versus a 1 month to 3 or 6 month time horizon. Do you work on trying to get customers and clients right now so you can make some money next week? Or do you work on creating content? Or do you take a little longer with creating your digital product or trying out an ad campaign that's probably not going to work because the first 5 or 6 almost never do, right? So those kinds of decisions and questions will be very different depending upon whether or not you have a 1 to 3 year time horizon or you have a 1 to 6 month time horizon. So here comes the big question. Are you an entrepreneur or are you, I'm doing entrepreneur over here. So here comes the big question. Are you an entrepreneur or are you a side hustler? And this has nothing to do with the actual project or business that you're working on. Someone who's working on a Shopify store or working on a YouTube channel or a blog or putting together a digital course or product, that isn't really part of this discussion or equation because it comes to mindset. Because someone who thinks of themselves as a side hustler or is just trying to make money online now, they're going to be in the 1 month to 6 month category, and their decisions are going to be different than someone who is operating like an entrepreneur with a 1 to 3 year time horizon. And so to help kind of illustrate this, let's go through a concrete example of actually my business in this channel. So back in June, we were looking at creating Q3 quarterly goals for 2020, and we actually decided to scale back YouTube content to work on an internal process that was kind of driving us nuts and an internal tool that's almost done. It took way longer than expected. And then also work on some digital products, which if you've been watching the vlogs, you've seen a couple of these. They're small digital products, but nonetheless, we actually finally created some digital products and offered them to you. So we made that decision at a time when YouTube was giving us a tremendous amount of AdSense revenue. Now, if we had a 1 to 6 month time horizon for our decision making processes, then we would have made more content because YouTube was getting a huge inflow of viewers for obvious reasons. And even in June, we were still seeing more views, more subscribers, and a lot more ad revenue. In fact, I think ad revenue is down almost over $1,000 since when it was back in June. And that's because we have a 1 to 3 year time horizon. So presumably we are taking away, okay, I'm going to say this right. So what we decided is we would sacrifice the short-term benefit of the next 1 to 6 months of, ooh, yay, more YouTube AdSense, let's throw a bunch of content videos out, versus presumably making more money on the digital products and the internal process that we're making that will pay dividends for years down the road. So when you're thinking as an entrepreneur, you're thinking in a 1 to 3 year time horizon, even for your revenue. So you might have an instance, just like we did, where we say, oh, well, we're actually going to let that income go right now because we know we're going to make more for years down the road if we focus on this now, even though this looks like a great opportunity. And so that's one of the other things that I think really differentiates being an entrepreneur from a make money online side hustle person. I'll just say side hustle person, is because you're not focused on the greatest opportunity in front of you right now. You're focused on the greatest opportunity for your business for presumably the longest time horizon that you are looking at. So you should be looking at things that are going to be successful 1 to 3 years from now, not that are going to be successful for the next 3 to 6 months, which sounds all well and good until we get to the number one cash problem objection to what I've just presented. And that is inevitably, I get a question, something like this.
But what if I need money right now? Like, I can't think about 1 to 3 years because I have to pay my credit card bills, or I have to pay this or pay that.
And you know what? That's a completely valid argument. That's a completely valid question. That's a completely valid point. And it has a dead simple, super simple answer that is for some reason completely taken off the table when we talk about entrepreneurship and side hustles. And it's something that I can do. It's something that presumably you can do. I'm saying presumably a lot for some reason. And it's just so simple, but there's so much objection to it. And this might sound radical, but it's just 3 words: get a job. That's what 99.9% of the people on the face of this planet who need money to pay rent, pay for food, pay for clothes, pay for whatever, fancy cars they want. That's what they do. They go get a job. However, because of the whole marketing behind making money online, side hustle, fake entrepreneurship gurus, they spend half their marketing vilifying that avenue. They vilify the 9 to 5. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5, because when you're building a business, you need a runway. Let's just ignore the ambulance in the background. You need a infinite runway in order for your business to work. There's a reason 9 out of 10 businesses fail. This is not something that someone should go into. I'm not saying you're doing this. This is not something that someone should go into expecting to make money in the next 1 to 3 months. In fact, I'm going to show you how that's actually gambling. So let's go back to our example of entrepreneurship here, our definition. Entrepreneur, a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. Taking on greater than normal financial risks to do so. So by simply saying we're entrepreneurs, we acknowledge the fact that we're taking on a financial risk. So what do we call someone who, I'm not saying this is you, I'm not saying this is me, right? So what do we call someone, I'm just using this to illustrate a point. What do we call someone getting really amped up, that takes on a risk with the expectation that it's going to not only pay out big, but it's going to actually solve one of their problems, presumably like paying rent or meeting a bill? Well, if someone is doing that, that's pretty much the definition of gambling, right? Taking on a risk because you want some big reward so you can solve one of your financial problems. Like, that's the definition of gambling. And since we're not gamblers, we're entrepreneurs, you need something, I need something that will cover our living costs while we figure this whole entrepreneurship business building thing out, because it's a risk. Right? We all hear the wonderful stories of, like, I'm going to take Mark Cuban for an example because this one's really easy. Where he's living in a small place, he's rooming with a bunch of other people, he's eating ketchup sandwiches, right? And then his software hits it big, then it's acquired by Yahoo, and then he has the foresight to buy a bunch of puts on it. So when Yahoo tanks, he still gets to keep his fortune, and he actually, I think, wound up making a little more money as a result of doing that. But at each one of those stages, for the 10 entrepreneurs who were bunking with a bunch of other people and eating, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Mine was peanut butter and jelly throughout college. And then the next tier where they actually got the company off the ground, and then they actually sold the company, and then they actually were able to protect and keep their wealth through a stock market crash. For the one Mark Cuban, there's another 20 to 30 entrepreneurs who did not make it. And so when we hear those types of stories, those are exceptions to the rule. Those are not in, if you think of a standard deviation graph, they're on the very tippy end of the ones who were actually successful and hit it really big. Most of us are not going to be able to go through that. And so you need to have something that is going to give you an infinite financial runway. Now, am I saying that, you need to just accept eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or ketchup sandwiches for the rest of your life and you need to sacrifice everything until this business works? No, absolutely not. I think this vlog is a perfect example of being patient and having a balance between being financially conservative and also taking financial risks, as opposed to like this channel and this business. For example, when I first started, I'm rambling a little bit here, but when I first started, I was living in a 380 square foot studio in Seattle. I worked part-time, my wife worked full-time, and if my business completely failed, like the first one had, we wouldn't be out on the street. And I think that's really important when you're approaching this, or if you're talking to someone who's thinking about starting a business. This should be seen as something that is 110% extra. If it doesn't work out, you're not financially ruined. And so I think I went way off on my notes here. I've been trying to do a better job of staying on task and not ramble, but that one just got away from me. So all to sum it up, the big difference between being an entrepreneur and the whole make money online and side hustle niche is that as an entrepreneur, you have a longer time horizon and you're not gambling. You're not trying to make something work in order for all of your dreams to come true, right? Presumably, we want our dreams to ultimately come true because we want our businesses to work, and that's okay to have, but we're not betting the farm on this business working. We're not saying, you know what, I don't need a 9-to-5 job. I'm going to work off savings and you know what, I'm going to make this work in the next 6 months. Like that's just terrible advice. And the reason that we see so much vilification of having any sort of job when it comes to being an entrepreneur is because in order to sell you a $2,000 course or a $5,000 mastermind, the marketer has to tell you, the fake guru presumably has to be telling you, wow, I'm really saying presumably out. The fake guru has to be telling you that the obvious solution has to be wrong. The obvious solution to anyone who's trying to start a business and needs to cover their expenses is to have a job and work on their business on the weekends, work on their business when they're not working, when there's plenty of food on the table and there's plenty of money for rent. You're also going to make much better decisions. I can tell you from personal experience, when you're looking at, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to pay rent? Your business decisions are going to be so much more calm, cool, collected when you don't have to answer that question. So thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and hit that like button. Comment below if you disagree with anything that I've gone through here. My initial plan was to keep this nice and short, but I just went on ramble alley there. So what would I do if I had to start over from scratch right now? Well, I would tell you that I would still recommend starting a YouTube channel, then blog posts or podcasts. I don't know anything about podcasts or building a blog. I terribly stink at those two, so I just talk about YouTube. But you choose one of those, and then you'd create content for your ideal customer, and I'd offer one service. So for me, I am kind of still decent about with Google Ads, right? So I would make a channel And all of it talks about Google Ads and everything, Google Ads and landing pages, lead generation. And then I would create a PDF that one for an account audit and then one for a landing page checklist. And those would be my 2 PDFs. I'd plug them in at the end of my videos or in between within my videos. And then the calls to action in the 7-day email sequence would be book a free strategy call with me. And then I would try and get clients from those strategy calls. And that would be pretty much the strategy for the first year or 2. And then out of that, the content would keep growing. And then of course, eventually there would be enough leads coming in where I could change my strategy. But that's what I would do if I was just starting over. And that plan only works if you're not trying to put food on the table next week. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through that rambling. Hopefully that made sense. The first part was a lot more organized. And as always, because I know you're an entrepreneur and you're not in that side hustle category, keep building the business you love.